Hey, welcome to another video. In this video, we're going to be setting up the HUD display. We're going to be showing the gears, speed, and units. So with that, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is head over to the blueprints, open up the player controller for the open world, which for me is the PC tutorial. And then we're going to head back to the level real quick, head over to content, widgets, open world, and then in here, we're going to right click, scroll down, user interface, user widget, going to call this WBP underscore HUD. Then we're going to open this up. Then we're going to head to the player controller real quick. So by the event begin play, just drag this out a bit. Then we're going to right click, get game instance, drag off from there. Then we're going to cast to BPGI game, connect the execution bin, and then drag off from SBPGI game, promote this to a variable, then connect that to the set show mouse cursor. So we're not going to use this in this video, but we are going to use it in future videos. So we might as well set this up now. And then after the set input mode game only, we're going to hold S, left click, create a sequence, connect the execution bin. Then from the then 0, before we add anything on there, we're going to right click, and then we're going to get enhanced input local player subsystem, the one over here. So I'm going to select that. And then from there, we're going to drag off and then add mapping context, connect the execution pin to the then 0. And then the mapping context we are looking for is the IMC inputs. And then that is that. And then from the then 1, we're going to drag off and then we're going to create widget. The widget is the HUD. The owning player, we're going to drag off from there and then look for self. From the return value, drag off, promote this to a variable. I'm going to call this as WBP HUD. And then from there, we're going to drag off and then add to viewport. Underneath the add to viewport, right click, and you're going to look for get controlled pawn. I'm going to drag off from there, and then we're going to cast to wheeled vehicle pawn. Connect the execution bin. From the as wheeled vehicle pawn, drag off and then get vehicle movement component. And then from there, drag off and then promote to variable, and then just connect the execution pin. That's fine as is. And then we're going to compile, save, and then the event tick, we're just going to drag this down so it's not in line with any of the code. I'm going to head over to the HUD. And then in here, we're going to add a canvas panel. On the canvas panel, we're going to add an overlay. Select the overlay, Control Shift, anchors, anchor to the entire screen. And then we're going to add a text block. Select the text block, assign this to the top right. We're going to add padding to the right of 50 and then to the top of 50. Change its context. Now it's going to set it to 4 zeros. This is going to be used to display the money. Then we're going to add a size box to the overlay. Within the size box, we're going to add a horizontal box. Within the horizontal, we're going to add a vertical box. Then within the vertical box, we're going to add a text block. Select the text block, Control D, select the size box. We're going to put this at the bottom. Oh, I didn't put the horizontal within the size box, just drag and drop that in there. And then we're going to add some padding on the left of 100 at the bottom of 50. Select the first text block. I'm going to set its size to 36. Change its content to a single 0. And then set its horizontal alignment to the center. Select the second text block. Change its size to 18. Change its content to gear. And then set its horizontal as well to the center. Select the vertical. Then we're going to add some padding on it of 10. And then we're going to Control D. Select the first text block in the duplicated vertical. We're going to set this to 3 zeros. Change the gear to KMH. And then we're going to set this to is variable. Then we're going to rename this to units. Select the first text block, the one with the 000. Set this to is variable as well. And then rename this to speed text. Select the text block with the single 0. set it to is variable, and then rename this to gears text. So that's everything. I'm gonna compile, save, head over to the graph, and then in the graph on the event construct, we're gonna right click, get game instance, drag off, and then pass to BPGI game, connect the execution pin from the SBPGI game, drag off, promote to a variable, compile and save, head back to the designer, select the top right text block. We're going to create a binding, SBPGI game, money. We're going to compile that. And then the KMH text, the one that is the units, we're going to create a binding for this as well. So create binding, and then we're just going to rename this to just get units. Then we're going to drag this out a bit. Then we're going to create a new variable. I'm going to call this KMH question mark. Hold control, drag this in, drag off, and then look for branch. Connect the execution pin. And then from the return node, the return value, drag off from there, promote that to a variable. We're also going to call this KMH text, and then drag it in with Alt, and then Control D. Let's drag this over here, connect them to the true and the false. So at the top, if it's true that it is KMH, just going to set this to KMH. And then if it's false, we're going to set this to MPH. Connect the execution pins to the return node. Then we're going to compile and save. We're going to create another function. We're going to call this load units. Then we're going to drag off and then look for does save game exist. The save game is the units. Drag off from the return, look for branch. From the true, drag off. We're going to look for load game from slot. Slot is the units. From the return value, drag off and then cost to BP save game. And then drag off from there and then get KMH. And then just drag in the KMH variable, drop that on the pin so we can set it, connect the execution pin, compile and save, head back to the event graph, and then after the set as BPGI game, drag in the load units function. So now we're going to set up the code so that we can display the gears and speed in a open spot. We're going to right click and then add custom event. We're going to call this update speed. We're going to add a single input. We're going to call this speed. This is going to be of type float. We're going to compile from the speed, drag off, and then look for absolute float. We're going to drag in the KMH Boolean variable, hold control, drag that in. From there, we're going to drag off and then look for select float. Let's drag this back a bit from the absolute float, drag off, and then we're going to multiply this by the select float value, connect that to the bottom pin. And then the top, which is the A, this is going to be 0.036. And then the bottom is going to be 0.02237. And then we're going to drag in the speed text, hold control, drag that in, drag off from there, and then set text. And then by the in text, take the multiply, connect that to the in text. Oh no, before we do that, we actually need to just delete that from the multiply, actually drag off, and then we're going to round it so that it gets converted into an integer value, and then connect that into the in text. It makes it a little bit easier so that we don't have to do the roundabout way. So if you had to take it from here and then do it to text, and then you would have to expand this, and then here where it says maximum fractional digits, it has usually by 3, which means that it has decimals. So instead of doing that, we then round it so that it becomes an integer, and then we add that to the text instead. And then gonna connect the execution pin. So with this, it pretty much says that if it is KMH, we're gonna take whatever value comes from the custom event, we're gonna make it an absolute, and then multiply this by 0.036, which is gonna give us kilometers an hour. And then we're gonna display that. And if it's not KMH, then we're going to multiply this by 0.02237, which gives us miles per hour. And then we're going to display it as such. And then the next one we're going to add is another custom event. So right click, look for custom event. and then we're going to call this update gears. Here we're also going to add a single input. We're going to call this gears. It's going to be of type integer. Just compile, and then we're going to drag in the gears text, hold control, drag it in, and then from the update gears, drag off, and then we're going to look for switch on int. With the switch on int selected, in the details by the pin options, where it says start index, it's set to 0. We're going to set this to -1. Then we're going to add a pin, add another pin, and then from the gears text, drag off and then set text. And then from the set text, control D, and then control D once more. And then the first one goes to the -0. The second one goes into the 0, and then last one goes into the default. And then just make sure they are all connected to the gears text. So the first set text, this is going to be R for reverse. The second one is going to be N for neutral. And then the last one, we get its information from the update gears. So from the gears, drag off and then connect that to the in text. And then that is how it's going to be. We're going to compile and then save. And then that will be it for now. We'll come back later when we do the minimap. So we're going to head back to the player controller. And then by the event tick, what we're going to do is we are going to drag in the as WPP HUD, hold control, drag that in. And then from there, we're going to drag off. And then we're going to look for the update speed. And then we're going to drag off again. And then look for the gears. And then just connect the execution pin. And then how we're going to get the information is from the vehicle movement component. So hold control, drag that in, and then we're going to drag off from there, and then we're going to get forward speed, connect that to the update speed, and then from the vehicle movement component again, drag off, and then we're going to get current gear, and then we're going to connect that to the update gears, and then that will be it. I'm going to compile and save, and then we're going to go test it out, see if it works. Head back to the level, save everything, play the level, then we're going to exit the workshop. So as you can see, it is being displayed. Our current gear is 1, our speed is at 0. Then if we drive, the speed is being updated, the gears are changing. And then if we're in reverse, and that also happens. So now what I'm going to do to test out whether the unit is being displayed properly, we're going to head back to the main menu where the settings is, and then we're going to play through the rest of the game. So now go settings, gameplay. It is currently set to kmh, so we're going to change this to miles per hour. Gonna head back. Then we're gonna exit the workshop. So yes. And then as you can see now, it does say mph. So as you can see also, it has changed slightly because previously when I hit second, the car would go to 120, but now it only goes to like 70 miles per hour. So it is being calculated correctly. So with that, that brings us to the end of this video. And until the next one.